Kennedy was killed, I remember where I was at the time in the cafeteria there, and a group of us there, they made the announcement.
Very sad time.
Yeah, we weren't too far from Fort Huachuca, which is, I don't know if you're familiar with Huachuca, but it's a very, it was mostly Signal, I think it was, Signal Corps or MI, one of those branches. And but what Huachuca was really known for was the location. It was just an ideal climate, beautiful almost like a recreation area. So we were able to use the facilities down there. We were near Mexico, so we got to go to spend some time there. Nogales, Mexico. So my wife enjoyed that. Davis-Monthan Air Force Base is there. You know, that's where they have Air Force mothballs. Their airplanes, so just fields of acres and acres of mothball planes are there.
Something like Wright Pet?
Well, I suppose. I've not been to Wright Pet, but these are just, yeah. Left there, you want me to just keep?
Yes.
See, Seth left there in '64 and went to Fort Bliss for a year.
You drove?
For 3 years. Drove, that's not that far into Fort Bliss, and we drove there. And I was assigned to the Air Defense Board there. If you recall, the artillery went through this period of time where there was actually two branches within one branch. It was the Air Defense, and then there was the Field Artillery. But I spent a year there. When you go to civil schooling, they called it, or advanced schooling, and you get a degree, they try to assign you to places where you'll use what you've learned. And that's at Fort Bliss. The Air Defense Board was my first assignment after leaving.
What was your rank at the time?
I was a major at the time. And I spent 3 years there at Fort Bliss. And then went from Fort Bliss to Fort Leavenworth, Command General Staff College. And so I spent 9 months there. Another good experience. I really enjoyed that. And then from there, I went to Vietnam.
How did the training compare, Command General Staff as against the university training? The curricula, I mean, the intensity of training and everything?
Well, it was an intense 9 months. It's more training. It's training more than. Be careful. I'm not saying there was no education, but it was. There were just things you had to learn. It was just a curriculum based on things you learned to prepare you for senior assignments later on. It's just kind of a different atmosphere than in the university. We were broken up into sections, and we learned division operations and corps operations, army operations, the logistics at that level. Interesting sidelight there was Colin Powell was there at the same time I was. We were in the same class. Didn't get much contact with him at the time because they assigned us based on alphabetically to sections, and he was P and I was W, and we weren't that close, and so I didn't see him academically, but socially we got together a couple of times while I was there. Leavenworth had about 1,300, I think it was 1,302 officers attending from all over the world, in addition to the United States, and very competitive. And you could see that Powell was an exceptional guy because he graduated number 2 in his class, in our class. And so the next time I saw him, he was signing a book right here in the area, a book that he had written, and then he was being pushed to run for president at the time. Of course, he didn't do that, but that's what it was. But from Leavenworth, let's see, went to Vietnam, and in Vietnam, I commanded an artillery battalion.
How did you get to Vietnam?
Flew. Interesting flight, because they used a regular civilian aircraft. I think it was TWA. I think it was we flew over on, and you had the stewardess or flight assistants they call them now. And, it was just like going to anywhere else. Except when you got to Vietnam, before you landed, you see mortars and shells going off and plane going into land. We went into Long Binh there.
Did you fly direct, or did you stop over in Hong Kong? Or
we stopped, was it
Japan?
I guess it was, on the way over.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't fly direct, no. But I was there for a year, commanded a battalion for 6 months. And then the second 6 months I was there, I was 24th Corps Artillery, S4. That was back in the days when the policy was they tried to get as many people through, give them command time as possible. So you were there to command for just 6 months, and then the second 6 months you did something else. So that was my experience there.
how far north did you get, or?
We were in the Hue Phu-Bai area.
Hue Phu-Bai.
Are you familiar with that area?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were there. That's where we were headquartered. Of course, we went all over that, up as far north as Dong Ha, which was the border between North Vietnam and South Vietnam. Oh, to Da Nang and places like that. We were all over that, the northern part of South Vietnam.
So you had batteries all over?
Yeah, they had them deployed all over the place.
And did you have to go and inspect them?
Oh
or?
yeah, we had 2 helicopters that belonged to me in battalion, and I've spent hours and hours and hours in those helicopters, traveling to going where the battalions were. I mean, the batteries were. It was an 8-inch 175 composite battalion. The chassis is compatible with both the 8-inch howitzer and this 175 millimeter gun.
And did you stay overnight at these different places, or did you fly in and fly out?
No, sometimes you fly in, fly out. Sometimes you spend the night, depending on the situation, what the assignment was, and where you were. And so yeah, both.
What did you think about the interdictory fire? Interdictory fire that they did every night. Was that was quite effective?
There was some restrictions placed on you because they were very careful. They didn't want to fire into friendly villages where civilians were. So every night we'd get an overlay which tell us where we can and cannot fire. In that sense it was very restrictive because they didn't want any incidents of killing innocent civilians, and so that kind of tied our hands behind our backs sometimes, but that was just the way it was.
Did you have to get permission from the locals?
They would tell you exactly where you, well, not so much from the locals, but from the Corps Artillery headquarters. They tell us where we're shooting, and
Did you have much incoming from mortars or from your bases and things like that? You're all there by yourself.
Yeah. Well, we weren't, my batteries were usually by themselves out there, but I was headquarters right there at Phu Bai, and we got a lot of mortars even there. It's just interesting how you learn. You can distinguish between incoming and outgoing. Our guns could fire all night long to sleep through without any problem. The first incoming, you woke up and you were going to headed for the bunkers. I don't know what it is, how that is, but that's the way it was.
Did you have any really outstanding experiences over there that you'd like to relate?
Very fortunate. Fortunately, I was not didn't lose any of my troops. I turned my battalion over to my successor, and 5 days later he lost 5 troops. So I was blessed in the fact that I lost any. We had some interesting encounters with another interesting story. Up in that area there was a place where the Marines and just seemed like ambushed every time they go down this particular road into this little town, and finally they were, the place was considered secure. To commemorate the fact that the place was now secure, for Stars and Stripes, you're familiar with Stars and Stripes as a newspaper. They had a lot of reporters come over, and we had this one train that went from where we were, and I'm not sure what it started to prove by somewhere around there. And when